this place down.
Down came Oak Street. Down came the verminous walls, the unclean, unhealthy rooms. And down came the fire hazards, the juvenile delinquency, the drunkenness, the broken marriages.
Regent Park was one of Canada's first public housing developments. Located in southeast Toronto, close to the downtown core and just north of our studio site, it is one of Canada's poorest neighbourhoods and houses 7,500 residents. The original site for Regent Park was a few blocks of dense urban slums plagued by overcrowding and poor building maintenance. After the Second World War, the slums were demolished and Regent Park was built on the site. Currently, a $1 billion revitalization of Regent Park is underway. The development will introduce a mixture of new public housing and market condominiums, housing a projected 12,500 residents. The typical typology of the original houses was that of a laneway house, which remains to this day a common housing type in many Toronto neighbourhoods. These houses were each populated by multiple families and were poorly constructed, contributing to slum-like living conditions.
Exoticizing the physical shabbiness of dwellings and neighborhoods and the troublesome behaviors ostensibly produced by them was not only an instrument of moral indictment, it was also a rhetorical technique intended to sufficiently unsettle the social imagination of the public to acquire support for slum clearance and public housing. Sean Purdy.
In 1948, the first phase, Regent Park North, was built, followed by Regent Park South in 1952. The shape of the new urban fabric was inspired by the radical modernist idea of towers in a park. Regent Park is a mixture of row houses, mid-rise apartment blocks, and towers. Regent Park North is composed of mostly mid-rise brick buildings. There are three different typologies: the bow, cruciform, and the row house. In the past 60 years, Regent Park has fallen into disrepair. Regent Park currently has one of the highest crime rates in the city, and many people attribute it to the architecture and planning of the site. Blind alleyways, unlit spaces, and ambiguous public parks are examples.
Most of my friends all said, yeah, where we're gonna go, we're all gonna do this, we're never gonna sell drugs, nothing. And then half of them now, they can't even say, yeah, I didn't do it.
Regent Park, whatever you're looking for, you can find it. So if you want to look for the bad stuff, guess what? You'll find that. If you want to look for the good stuff, you'll find that too. Regent Park is a great community, but there's a big difference. There's a big difference between community and housing. I love the Regent Park community but not Regent Park housing.
The removal of many cross streets to create large parks in the 1948 development isolates the site from the surrounding urban landscape and marginalizes many services.
There is no point in bringing parks to where the people are, if in the process the reasons that the people are there are wiped out and the park is substituted for them. Jane Jacobs.
Planning and architecture are not the only issues that contribute to the problems in Regent Park. There are many socioeconomic causes as well. The new development aims to reconnect Regent Park by reinstating many of these cross streets. The revitalization proposes a mixture of row houses, mid-rise apartments, and towers. Existing buildings, amenity space, and market and social housing, providing 5,400 housing units for 12,500 people. A central park aims to provide a focused recreational space, as opposed to the distended public realm in the previous proposal. The new towers in Regent Park all feature extensively glazed commercial spaces, townhouses, or retail at ground level, seeking to engage and create a sense of transparency and safety on the street. The Architects Alliance project at the corner of Sackville and Dundas is a building composed entirely of social housing apartments. The tower at the north end of the site has 159 units for seniors, some of which are wheelchair accessible. The 7th floor contains a seniors' amenity space, including 2 lounges, laundry, and a winter garden. The 8-story building at the south side is for families and adults without children. It contains 65 units with 2 to 5 bedrooms. The building contains a large multi-purpose family-oriented amenity space, computer and children's playrooms. The podium connecting both buildings contains a common outdoor garden terrace. This level of amenity, typically associated with market housing, breaks the social perception and expectations of public housing. Sackville Dundas uses stormwater retention, solar energy, and other sustainable initiatives to quickly return the capital cost and ensure the longevity of the building. Targeted for LEED Gold certification in the future, the tower will act as a power cogeneration plant that will serve the entire 70-acre Regent Park community.
So all of these things come together to help to minimize the impact that this building has on the environment. And we're thrilled by that. We're also thrilled to be able to connect to the central energy plant that TCHC has put underneath the Dundas Sackville building.
Which all the new housing, whether it's market or non-market, will be hooked up to, and in fact will be able to supply beyond the immediate boundaries of Regent Park. So obviously it allows you hugely efficient generation of both heat and cooling. It also allows you to hook up to non-carbon sources, so solar and geothermal and so on.
Narrow floor plates and operable windows maximize daylight and fresh air circulation. Modular unit design can be reconfigured to accommodate changing housing requirements as the community's demographic changes over time. The only residential building to remain in the new proposal is one of the 5 Peter Dickinson towers. After public outcry at the destruction of these modernist masterpieces, the developer agreed to maintain and refurbish one of the towers. These towers were revolutionary in Canadian social housing because of their skip-stop unit design. Influenced by Le Corbusier's Unité d'habitation in Marseille, each unit features a living space which goes from one side of the building to the other, allowing light in both sides of the unit. This unit layout is reflected in the facade of the building. The aspiration of these buildings was optimistic. The goal was to provide more pleasant spatial conditions for residents. However, because of the site strategy and poor maintenance, the buildings have fallen into disfavor. The siting of the original 5 buildings is seemingly arbitrary. Their orientation does not correspond to the geometry of the park or solar angles.
In Regent Park South, the towers seem to be placed randomly, with reference neither to Dundas Street nor to the boundaries of the newly created square. However, they were carefully arranged to run with the hands of the compass, either directing north-south or east-west. It is a good example of planning with regards to factors that have little relationship to the actual environment. John Sewell.
The concept of towers in the park is a modernist idea which took hold in Canada during the early 50s and has remained a prominent urban typology. The parks in front of the Dickinson towers are underused. One bizarre characteristic of the buildings is the balconies designed by Dickinson to provide fire egress. The balconies form connections between 2 units. Dickinson designed a glass box containing a hammer, which one could use in case of emergency to break into the neighbor's apartment in order to escape. They have since been removed. The outcome for the revitalization seems optimistic for a few reasons. A mixed-income population creates the necessary consumer power to stimulate and start new businesses. Vehicular access reconnects the neighborhood to the rest of the city, bringing social cohesion. And an increase in commercial and national retail space creates employment, credibility, and an animated street connection. There are many criticisms of the new revitalization plan as well. The addition of market housing into the neighborhood poses many questions. Who would choose to buy a condo in Regent Park given its unfavorable history? Is the market housing just an excuse to gentrify the area for profit? Many people worry that the complete demolition and reconstruction of Regent's Park is too simple a solution for such a complicated problem. It is important to be wary of a tabula rasa solution, given the history of Regent Park developments. To look at the 1948 planning as a complete failure and assume that we know better is ignorant. It is important to recognize the layers of history as a palimpsest upon which we build.
Neighborhoods built up all at once change little physically over the years as a rule. The little physical change that does occur is for the worse. Gradual dilapidation, a few random shabby new uses here and there. People look at these few random differences and regard them as evidence, and perhaps as cause of drastic change. Fight blight. They regret the neighborhood has changed, yet the fact is, physically, it has changed remarkably little. People's feelings about it, rather, have changed. The neighborhood shows a strange inability to update itself, enliven itself, repair itself, or to be sought after out of choice by a new generation. It is dead. Actually, it was dead from birth, but nobody noticed this much until the corpse began to smell. Jane Jacobs.